Greetings everyone. Okay, Veritas's final reply about the normative facts and values. Whether the argument, I don't mean to imply that your argument was somehow can be deductively deduced or something, whether you just thought God was simply the better answer and that was it. To me, it doesn't really makes much of a difference anyways. But you should have defined the argument from the outset, and I didn't think you did a too well job of that. Had you did, if I was knowing what type of obligation you were looking for, what type of so-called ought, I know that's bothering a lot of people to use it as a noun, but if you would have said that from the beginning and made it clear what you were looking for, I would have said what you're looking for does not exist. You're looking, as the example you give, if it is raining then it's wet outside, is sound reasoning, and better reasoning than if it's wet outside then it's raining, which is a reversed. And you say, now what can I say that you ought to reason in the former rather than the latter? But it doesn't matter because it cannot be divorced from the practicality of it. You can't say it ought to be this way without referring to some sort of practicality to it. If you want to have a statement that is closer to the truth or more likely to be true, then you have to argue the way of the former rather than the latter. To divorce it of its practicality or how it is contingent on your goal for the truth is impossible. You can't do it. So to say you ought to reason this way because you ought to reason this way because you ought to reason this way because God said so, it doesn't exist. And because God said so doesn't solve the problem any better than anything else. I know you don't want your position to be critiqued anymore, but that's the thing. You're saying that your position is better, but it has the same fatal flaws. Just relegating it to one person, aka God, does not solve the problem. If God, because how does God derive these obligations, these moral obligations? If it is something that is external, then God is unnecessary and we're back to the same point. But if it is internal, then it means it's arbitrary. It's nothing more than his personal choice. So instead of not only suffering the same problems, it suffers one more in that regard. So to say your position somehow better explains for something that you're looking for that doesn't exist in the first place and it isn't solved by a God anyways, is simply ridiculous. This is a bad argument. Basically, I can't say any different than what Peter has already said, because he pretty much succinctly nailed it in the head, but just a little more angry and frustrated oomph. My opinion about this whole thing, it reveals a particular theistic mindset, and it's really sad, because it's almost like they want their lives to fit in boxes, nice little neat boxes, things clear cut, black and white. You know, this is right because simply from the supposed powerful ought that is, of course, solved by God's because God said so, reveals that they don't want to make a lot of decisions or choices. I don't want to say they don't want to think about it. Obviously, Veritas put a lot of thought into this argument, but it still suffers the same fatal flaws that he's saying that exists in the atheist, but he's only because he's looking for something that doesn't exist. So, that's it. That's all I have to say. Peace.